Hey everyone, welcome to the Oasis podcast. I'm your host, Miss AJ. Thanks for tuning in. An oasis is something that provides refuge, relief, or a pleasant contrast, and that is exactly what you will find tuning into the Oasis podcast. This is a space where I and special guests will be cultivating intentional and honest conversations about life's journey. Subscribe everywhere you listen to podcasts and watch us on YouTube now. Wouldn't you love to create your own personal oasis? What is an oasis, you ask? An oasis is something that provides refuge, relief, or a pleasant contrast, and that is exactly what you will find at AJO Consulting Services, LLC. AJO Consulting Services is a company that provides individuals, communities, and businesses of color with coaching and consulting services, personal and professional development, as well as social and community connection services. These services include, but are not limited to, dating, life, relationship, and business coaching, finance management, travel experience curation, wellness navigation, and much more. Are you ready to find, connect, and release? Come experience your oasis today. Visit our website to learn more at www.ajoconsultingservices.com. Follow us on Facebook at AJO Consulting and Instagram at AJO Consult. Also, email us at info@ajoconsultingservices.com.
What are you comfortable spending a month in the mortgage?
And the mortgage is not the only expense when you're buying a home. I think your loan officers or your banks kind of keep saying mortgage. But there's also utility bills that you probably, if you live in an apartment or something, that you wouldn't think about when you go in a house. So you have to also think about those things,
Absolutely.
Right? Outside of your car note, groceries, you still got, now there's water bill, right? There's electricity, there's gas, there's like these other things that are tacked on that you may have never in your life thought about paying before.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to think about those numbers. So it's not just how much you qualify for, but yes, let's say you qualify for a high number, but make sure that when it comes to the monthly payment, to me, that's the more important number. Yeah. How much can you afford monthly? So that's why for us, we didn't necessarily ask how much do we qualify for, but we said this is how much we're comfortable paying monthly. What's the highest can we get based on that monthly number? So I think that's important, because you could qualify for $1 million, but if you're not able to make your monthly payment, it doesn't mean anything.
And they're quick. And by them, I mean the financial institutions are quick to be like, oh, you qualify for this, but in their mind, they're only thinking about, oh, this is what your mortgage was going to be.
That ratio.
Oh, yeah, this is what you can afford your mortgage, but you have other expenses in life. And so then if all your money is going to your mortgage, what do you have left to pay for other things? And I think that gets a lot of people caught up. Like, definitely
break
that down, and don't let people push you out of that comfort zone. Don't do it.
Right. Yeah. Because the loan officer is only mainly looking at your income and your debt. But they don't necessarily see all the details. Not that they don't see, but they don't necessarily take that into consideration. It's in your best interest to do so that you don't live the struggle life.
Yep.
So you're not working just to pay a mortgage. You don't have no extra money for no break, no vacation, or you need to work multiple jobs to pay a mortgage. I don't think that's the way, at least for us, we're not about that struggle life.
No.
So
not at all.
Something to keep in mind.
Not at all. So definitely that's one of those areas. Don't bend. Don't let somebody talk you out of it. Don't let them say, oh, you can do. If that's not what you want, don't do it. But also be realistic about what that number means you can get. Yeah. Right? So if you're looking for a 5-bedroom house and you're like, I don't want to pay $1,500, it might not be realistic. Okay, that's just reality of if you're looking, I'm talking about looking in New York or in Jersey, so type of places, maybe somewhere else in the US that might be realistic, but you also have to be realistic, and you might have to, that number of bedrooms got to come down. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Or that neighborhood got to change, right? Or something like that. So yeah, that's important to be realistic in that sense. But don't let, if you know that's the number, you can always go underneath. That's always great. But don't go too high, and also know what your max is, right? Like, you could be comfortable here, but no, I could fandangle a little bit more, but don't let anyone push you past that, your limit, because again, at the end of the day, you're stuck with that, and you have to make sure you live the quality of life you want to live. You don't want to be, after you get the house, realize, damn, what the hell did I do? You know, and now you're like, you can't even go get a dinner if you want to, because literally all your coins are going to just paying that mortgage.
Right. Another thing I would add is that if you're buying a rental property where you're living and you're renting, or if it's just for renting, have some reserve.
Yes.
For one, you have to pay the mortgage until you rent the property. And two, in case your tenants don't pay, you're not struggling where you're not able to pay the mortgage. So have some reserve for 3 to 6 months possible.
Yeah. And that part might deter people, but it's necessary, because again, you might think the market's hot, this is gonna be easy. No. If you're looking for quality tenants, if you're looking for, honestly, it's just about the quality. I think you're gonna get people interested, but you want to make sure it's that you guys mesh. And so you're not going to grab the first person that's like, hey, I want to rent. So, and they may not be qualified either, right? So making sure that you can cushion that, because believe you me, we've experienced it. It took a while. So to find what we were looking for, and you got to eat those costs. Like, you got to eat them at the end of the day. And you don't also, I mean, I'm of the mindset, I believe Jenn is as well, is you don't want to rely either on, yeah, your tenant is going to be stellar, you know, gold star every month paying you. You want that, of course. Yeah. But stuff happens. Right. Stuff happens. And you want to make sure you're not now scrambling to be able to pay when they can't pay. And so that's also an important piece. And also having some money in the reserves is definitely to pay mortgage, but also for repairs. Because the journey don't stop when you buy. Okay. And so I guess we can dive into that piece of it. The home that we bought was in fairly decent condition. Now, it looked newly renovated, of course, with the naked eye. We're like, this looks great. But when you go a little deeper with the right professionals, you're like, this wasn't necessarily done the right way, right? But I think we were blessed in a lot of ways. A lot of ways. And I mean, we didn't touch on it, but jumping back a little bit, the finances piece, again, depending on the state you in, depending on the situation that you get into in regards to your seller, there's a lot of ways. And this is why also an inspection is important, because that helps you go to a negotiation table with like, boom, you see this. I don't want to fix that. I think you should fix it. And sometimes they're like, we don't want to fix this, so we'll give you a credit or whatever. They'll do something, and that knocks down how much money you have to pay out your pocket. Have the money though, but it knocks it down for you so that now you can repurpose that money, right? For something. And so we were blessed in that way that, again, not too many crazy things were going on, but we were able to negotiate a lot of things. And so coming to the closing table, it was a very nice closing. It's all I'm saying. It was very nice, okay? And I think we made out pretty damn good. Yeah.
I think you always kept reminding me that what's for us, it's for us. And I think that property was definitely for us, because most of the conditions, like things aligned so that it happened, and we came out on the winning side, so to speak, where we don't have no remorse, and we're not faced with no major obstacle. So I think in that way, and then till today, we don't have any major like anxiety, like, oh my God, we shouldn't have done that. No, so far, thank God, we've been blessed. Everything have been working. Even the little things that may come up or nothing major that we cannot address.
Yeah.
So I think, like you say, what is first? Because sometimes I used to get so down. I'm like, oh my God, what's like we're not things are not happening. We keep doing this. It's been at this point we were working with a particular agent for, well, by the time we closed, it was almost like more than 10 months because we started working with him, well, 9 to 10 months, I think, by the time we closed. We started working with him around January or beginning of February, mid-January, I think, of 2022. And we closed in November, beginning of November. So by the time we did, we saw the property, made offer, what do you call it? We didn't even talk about the attorney review, but there was a lot of back and forth with that. That's another piece, I guess, another player who's part of the process. Another person you also have to make sure that they have your back, your best interest, because you can lose a property if both parties are not doing what they're supposed to do, and that person doesn't have your best interest. So that's another part. So by the time we went through all that process, inspection, back and forth with attorneys in terms of what we want them to fix, things we will not budge on. And that's one of the things about inspection. It breaks down the deficiencies in different categories. There's like what they call it, I don't remember the term they use, but things that are in red where these are safety deficiencies. These things we didn't budge on. And there are certain things where we know the cost won't be that expensive. We still ask, but we were more open to negotiating on those things. So thank God for the inspection and our inspectors. They were very thorough, efficient, and they gave us our report in a timely manner where we were able to use it to advocate and got the things that we deserved. And I think it was fair. We can't say we weren't taken advantage of, and it's not like we're asking for things that we shouldn't have asked. It was fair, and we were strong, big negotiators. We weren't playing when it comes to our numbers, and we didn't let people walk all over us. And we had our agent who also was advocating for us and try kind of when we were negotiating, he made us see both sides where we know, okay, we'll accept this and not that. So he was also, the agent was a big part of that process.
He was, yep, for sure.
Also following up with people when people were not doing on time. Okay, so he was also, okay, I got it, email them or calling them and making sure the process was moving. So he definitely made it much smoother process for us, and he was there on every time we had something going on for viewing, for inspection. What else did we have going on? When we had contractor coming, he was there throughout and show up. And for other properties, when he couldn't come, he respected our time. He sent somebody, and I don't think he ever canceled on us. He always tried to find somebody else to show us if anything came up with him. So that's something we really appreciated. He was very respectful of our time.
That's definitely what I was going to touch on. You touched on it. And I also wanted to add, like, he built that consistency and trust with us to the point where now we have that relationship with him. Like, if we can't be there, he's like, I got you. Like, and we trust that he got us, and he does, you know? Yeah. So that's very, very true. Very important. So finding that person that is really that dedicated, you know, to the process for you, and they want to see you win, you know? And I've always felt that with him. He wanted to see us win. At the end of the day, of course, his time was paid for. He even did stuff that technically he wasn't going to get paid for. I mean, we believe in people paying for people's time. So we gave him whatever, but it's, you know, he came into it thinking it's okay. Like, I'm not getting paid. Right. And he still did the work for us. And I think that speaks to his integrity and how he really does, you know, he's invested in what he does.
Right. Absolutely.
For sure.
I was going to say that we spoke about how long it took working just with him. Now we're not even counting the previous agents. So I know that's one thing you asked me about, taking breaks.
I'm good for a break, baby. I like mental breaks. I can't, because I know how I function when I push myself past my break. Like, I know it's not going to go well. And Jenn was more resistant to it because of more. I mean, I understand you have a goal and it's like, I need to get this done. And I know, and then also because of the market, right? Things go up and down and you're like, oh, I'm going to miss my window. All those things are valid, but I know for me personally, because again, I was in this process a little longer than Jenn. And so I know like how I felt pushing myself past the point and how it just didn't make me feel good. And I'm like, this is not how I should feel doing this type of thing. This is a life-changing event, but it should also, I don't think, feel this bad. Like, I was like, I don't know. So for me, I think it was a big deal for us to take little mental health breaks, regrouping breaks, because I think it was helpful. I think you can speak to it. For me, it was helpful because I mean, I was the one who requested it, but I don't know, you can give your experience in hindsight, like experiencing it and how it went, how it was for you.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I, like you said, I was more, I don't know if I would say resistant, but maybe I don't think I was ever the one to bring it up, because I'm always like, go, we gotta get it. But I appreciated those breaks, because it definitely, like we said in previous episodes, this process definitely is emotionally taxing. So it was very appreciated, even though I guess when you suggested it, I was like, I'm a bit disappointed, but because I always feel like, okay, we've been doing this is something I want to get to the finish line, and I was like on the grind, let's get this going. But it definitely was, I guess, now that we're done, it was much appreciated. But I think aside from taking breaks, I think because we were doing it together, we were a sort of support for each other.
Yes.
But not everybody's doing this with a partner, whether business or personal partner. So it's important to surround yourself with a support system, whether it's a person who's gone through the process, who can give you advice, or somebody you can just talk to when you're struggling. So yeah.
Yep. I agree 1000%. I think everyone is capable of doing this on their own. I personally just wouldn't want to. Like, I mean, I have the know-how, I have the means, but there's just something about having someone there to speak to about the process and bouncing ideas off of them. And let's also be real about sharing the cost of things, because that shit was expensive. And I think, I mean, I'm personally a person that believes wholeheartedly in collective wealth, like us as a, you know, community, as a people building together. So for me, it wasn't about, oh, you know, the fear of doing something with someone. It was a matter of finding the right person to do it with, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, hands down, I know I found the right person. I had no problem with that. So it was that I knew I can trust. I knew we of the same mind and all that. So if you're planning on doing something like that, of course, make sure you do your due diligence, just like for your real estate agent, with whomever you plan on going into business with. But it's important, exactly what Jenn said, of like, when you're having those moments and you're feeling down and you're feeling defeated, being able to talk to someone who understands, even if it's understanding, even if they haven't gone through it themselves, it's not going to be someone who's a Debbie Downer or someone who's going to tell you, oh, why are you doing that? You can't do, because you don't need to hear that extra. Like, it's already hard. You don't need to hear someone who is going to deter you from your goal because of their own shit, right? Because they're afraid, or they don't want to see you leave, or they don't want to see you advance, whatever their reasoning is, because that extra can really mess you up. You know what I mean? It can really impact you emotionally and mentally. And this is already taxing as it is to your emotional and mental. And it's also important, again, to have, you know, like-minded people around you, because I think during those times we did take the downtime. We did take space to be like, we don't want to talk about nothing housing related. And that helped kind of reset your mind. But then when we came back, before we jumped right back in, we were more refreshed. We were more like, all right, this what didn't work last time. Here's what we're going to do this time. Right. And so we went into it with new strategies, open now to different things that we weren't open to before. Right. Whereas before we were just going. And I think that coming out of those breaks helped us whenever we did do them. I felt it gave us more clarity back in. And I think, at least I can speak from what I witnessed, it also kind of released a little bit of the pressure, I think, of like, oh, we didn't accomplish this goal. Yes, it still didn't feel good, but it didn't feel like as like, we got to keep going hard. It's like, all right, we're starting up again. We have a better understanding. Let's go into this with a different mindset. You know what I mean? At least for me, that's how I kind of gathered from it. Yeah,
I definitely felt now that we've done this, I feel like every time when it did not work, we got something better, or we got further along in the process. And we both were the type of people who sit down and evaluate that process, like you say, see what did we do wrong, or what can we do better. Sometimes it's not that we did something wrong, but you could have done something differently. For example, some of the things that I know we did this time around, the last time when we got this one, we saw how some people were presenting their offers, which we weren't doing before. So we strategized. So our agent would ask, okay, well, I don't know if they do that automatically, or if our agent would ask about, I guess, the competition. And one of the things that we realized were how they presented the offer, even though the numbers were the same in terms of down payment, but the way they said they would give, instead of giving, which a lot of time you just give a, what do you call it, like a deposit, but they would offer to give the entire amount, which you're not losing if, let's say, after inspection, whatever the case, something falls through, you're getting your money back. But for whatever reason,
we were like, nah.
sellers, I guess they're more comfortable when you have all that amount invested. That means that you're actually committed to buying the property. So that's one thing that, and also in terms of now with this new, with this current market, people are offering to pay above appraised. So that was one thing we had to be flexible with and say, how much are we willing or able to pay above appraised value. So we had to go in our go to our finances, how much we had saved, and see how much made sense, because a lot of people were making offers that were that includes paying a certain amount above appraised value. So that was one thing that we had to discuss and adjust with, because we didn't come and say, okay, we're paying we make our offer, and if it goes through, that's it. But that's not the current reality of the housing market.
And I just wanted to add, it makes the offer look more palatable. Like, it just made it look more alluring to the seller, but you also still had to be ready if it didn't work out for you to be able to pay the extra. So that's why we say have the extra cushion there, right? And the extra cushion, and only offer what you're comfortable with offering. Right. So it could be a couple hundred more, or it could be a couple thousand more, but be comfortable knowing, okay, if I have to get this money up, I have to. Thank God for us. No, when I tell you this home was ours, like how everything works out, all the areas where we thought we was going to be spending some boku money, like some good money, but the thing is, where we didn't spend it here, we did have to spend it here, but it was worth it. You know what I mean? Like, it made sense. It was like, thank God we didn't have to do it here, because this was better suited here. So Yeah, so being open about those things, like exactly, I actually forgot about those two things you mentioned, because I ain't gonna lie, it's either one of us or probably me, because when it comes to be like, why I need extra money for? What we doing with it? I was more like, what we doing here? Why are we doing this? And so I needed to feel comfortable with that, about like, one, why are we offering this money? Two, are we gonna get it back? So making sure that is, but yes, you had to play around with those type of things, because that's just how the market was going. But it had to also make sense, and you have to feel comfortable, not to feel forced about it. Like what I do appreciate about the agent, and also with Jenn, and vice versa, whenever we had opposing thoughts or opinions, we were able to talk through it, right? We were able to be like, hey, this is what I think, this is why I think it. Okay, hey, this is how I feel. And then come to like, all right, we're going to try this. Let's do it. Let's see how it feels. And then you do it that one time and you're like, all right. Then it became like a regular thing for us. Right. Throw that down, like drop that on there.
But we did not even need to spend that extra money, but that's one of the things we learned and we had to do in order to be more competitive. Our offers to be more competitive.
Yeah. And the agent had to teach us that, right? He had to school us way, but it wasn't in a pushy, because if we ain't want to do it, he's like, all right. Mm-hmm. And that was fine. But and that's what I appreciate about, he never forced us to do anything. He gave us the info, and he was like, you do with it what you want. Here's what I think, but y'all do what y'all want. And eventually, yes, these little things that he suggested were what it was, because this is his life, this is what he do, so he knows. And it did help us in the long run. Yes, everything you do is to get you to the closing table. You close, it feels great, it's wonderful, you accomplished it, and then you're like, we have a whole property that you have to take care of. And this is when the real work, I feel the real work starts, of renovations, right? And then finding the right tenants, because now you a landlord, depending on the type of property that you get. And so I definitely want to talk on the renovations piece of it, why those extra funds are very important, and then talking about the process of getting your space rented, if that's the type of property that you have, and being ready for those obstacles, because it ain't for the faint of heart.
Yeah, I think for us, we take becoming, like, owning the property is a big accomplishment, but we also take it very seriously, the responsibility of being landlords.
Yeah,
because we want to make sure we protect our investment, but we also want to provide a safe living environment for everyone. So having said that, there are certain things that I guess most people, from what we heard from the contractor, people wouldn't necessarily spend money on, but we kind of, it was important for us, because I think it's good investment. So we had some renovation, not major renovation, but we had some renovations done. And even with that, I think that so far everything has been mainly on track. We haven't had no major issues with that either. And he was also a referral from our agent. So that's also why I said that it's important for your agent to be knowledgeable and have resources, because it doesn't end after closing. He was the one who recommended that person to us. Yeah, so as landlords, I think it's been exciting and a bit of, nervous at the same time, because we're both very detailed people and we have high expectations, which I wouldn't even say high expectation. We have certain things people would slack on. We're very particular, for example, with cleanliness, sanitation, and the upkeep of the property, the way we present quality, safe living environment, and we have the same expectations of our tenants. So that's been something that we had to highlight to our tenants and make sure we include that in our lease. So it's a learning process, but I think for the most part, everything has been going well. You're dealing with people, not everybody have the same experience or care about the same thing. So you will have some hiccups with tenants, but so far thank goodness everything have been, for the most part, good.
Pretty
I
decent.
don't
Yeah.
know what. Mhm.
I would add, in regards to the renovations piece, two things. Again, having the extra cushion for the funds, because again, things come up
Mhm.
and you want to be ready to pay for them. And choosing a good and the right contractor, because they like to play games.
Mhm. Yeah, you have
We
to.
had to be on the quality was there, but we had to be on him in regards to our timeline, because we
Mhm.
wanted to make sure certain things went a certain way. So those are the two main things I would definitely say. Choose someone's quality, choose someone who was recommended for sure. Don't just pick a random person to be a contractor, and make sure that you yourself can invest in the time to make sure the person is doing what they need to do. Being able to be there to see what they're doing, pop up, and don't be afraid to speak up when something wasn't done the way that you wanted it to be done as well. And the next piece I was at about, becoming a landlord, I don't know if I would say it was exciting. But it definitely is not something that we took lightly. Being, of course, ourselves being, at some point in life, being a renter, living in different places. You have an idea of like, if I was doing this is how I would do it, right? And so now when you have the opportunity to, you want to, apply all these little things. But a huge thing for us is like, we wouldn't want to give anyone or provide a space that we wouldn't live in ourselves, and we want to make sure it's kept in that way. This is a huge investment for us. Literally was all our coins that we worked hard for. And so we want to make sure people like respect that. And I think that might be the most difficult piece of it all, is people are just like, I'm just here to pass the time. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever their thought process is of how long they're going to be there and what that space means to them. And I think for me, that's the hardest part to process, of like, I'm just not a type of person, regardless if I own it or not, I'm going to treat it the way it needs to be treated. Like, we vacation before. And even we vacation, we tidy up, even though there's someone paid to do that. You know what I mean? That's just our mentality of like, we can't leave the space looking crazy. You know what I'm saying? And we're on vacation and we're renting the place. Right. And so that's just how we are. So especially now we own something or we're renting something, we still keep that same quality. Right. Because in our minds, it's like, this is ours. I live here. I'm going to make sure this is the best quality that I can get. Everyone definitely does not live like that. Everyone does not perceive things like that. And I think that's the most difficult piece. I think a lot of time people think about, the money, long they can pay me. That's all that matters. It's more than that. It definitely is more than that. And so that's, a little bit of an adjustment. But overall, and then also the timing, don't think in your mind it's going to happen 1, 2, 3. That ain't true. And we've had that experience. My partner has that experience of thinking, oh yeah, everybody looking for a place to live. Yeah, there's tons of people looking for a place to live. Doesn't mean they could afford your place. Doesn't mean they're going to fit your standards. Doesn't mean they're going to be qualified. So keeping that in mind and making sure you're ready for that. Because again, if you're not financially ready, that could be super taxing on you. That can be super stressful. And so being prepared for that process, but making sure you still sticking to your values. Like, don't get to a point where you're like, oh, I just want anybody at this point. Don't do that, because you're going to regret it. Make sure you stick to what you want, but be prepared for how long that might take.
Right. I think another piece of it is that you, in a sense, you can be liable for things that happen. So you have to make sure that it is a responsibility. So you have to make sure that what other people, your tenants, are doing are not putting other people's health in jeopardy, and your property also in jeopardy. But more for me, one of the biggest, I feel like, responsibilities other people's lives. So we got to make sure that whatever we're responsible, we're doing what we're supposed to do. So that's another thing, know what are your landlord's responsibilities, and also based on where you live, and also what are the tenants' responsibilities, and make sure that it's clear on black and white to them that this is the expectation, and hold them accountable. So that's another thing. You cannot, well, for us, we're just starting this. This is our first property, but also we're not some big company. You have to be involved, and like any business, when you're starting it, I would say you have to be involved. You cannot be some absent owner, because people are not gonna take your care of your business or your property the way you would. So I think that's an important thing for us to know what we're supposed to do what we're supposed to do, and hold people accountable to what are their expectations as well. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think these have been some of the biggest things.
Agreed. So, I mean, we dropped a lot of lessons and gems, but I think for if they don't remember nothing else, what are some things you think for someone who is looking to buy a home? What would you say to them would be the things the lessons you learned and the things that you would hope somebody would keep in mind?
So some of the things I would say is to be flexible with your expectations, your wants, your needs. Be realistic with your budget. That one is key. Know how much you can afford, and do not go above your max. Stay focused on the bigger picture. So yes, you're flexible, but what are you trying to accomplish? So if you have that in mind, you can say, okay, yes, maybe I could change this, change that, and stay focused on the bigger picture, and surround yourself with supportive, positive people. So these would be my advice and my takeaways from this experience. And if I may add, if you're doing this with a partner, make sure that you guys are on the same page, because friends, family, and different relationships can go sideways if when it comes to business. For us, we knew the type of individuals we are, and we spoke about what we're trying to accomplish. And for the main part, we've been able to respect other people, each other's opinion, and we were able to come to agreements. And so far, thank God, everything has been on the right track. So that's important as well.
I agree. I definitely co-sign all of that. I would add, definitely plan and prepare as much as you need to. And meaning, think about the different aspects, right? Again, it's not just, oh, I just need a down payment, blah, blah, blah. So plan accordingly for all of that, right? And also a piece of it, I don't think people take into account is in the planning, a lot of your time is going to be taken to look at places, right? I don't think we think about that piece too, that we gave a lot of our time, traveling and like doing that piece. And that could be also very taxing in the process of looking at all these homes. And so put that into your plan. And the prepping piece is, yes, making sure you're saving enough money, making sure that you have that community that you can bounce ideas off. You can have that support and when you need to, mentally and emotionally as well. And I mean, I think you said a lot of it. And I think I guess the final piece of it is just to really be adaptable. Just not necessarily have to go with the flow, but understand that things are not always going to go your way. Understand that sometimes you're going to have to stop and restart, and understand that there's a lot of things that are not in your control, and have to be ready to shift gears if you need to. And this is a serious decision, and do not let a lot of people who are not going to be there once the ink dries on the closing papers control the process for you. Like, don't do that, because that's going to leave you with a lot of responsibility and a lot of stress. And so making sure you're doing things that you wholeheartedly feel is the right thing to do. And that piece of definitely what Jenn said of, if you are going into this with someone else and whomever that person is, making sure we can say trust and all that stuff, but I think also having a level of respect for the person is important. And I think that helps with our relationship. It's just that, like, we don't always agree. And again, we got strong personalities, so we will be like, boo, 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 boo. But we respect each other enough to know, like, this is coming from the person really feels strongly about this, and so I'm going to hear it, or if you feel like you know, this is something that you also don't want to bend on, you can also make that clear, but we respect each other enough to know that this is just what's happening here. This is the house, this is the business. That ain't got nothing to do with nothing else that we are experiencing. And we know this is for a same goal. We're both equally invested. And so I think that piece is also important. It's not about the money. It's not about it. Of course, that plays a part, but it's not only about that, right? It's just a level of respect and regard that you have for the person that you're going into this with, and not solely looking at them like, oh, you're just a person here that's going to share half the, you know, the bills or whatever. No. This is something that's important. The relationship is actually important. And we just, again, this is nothing that we talked about, but we have a synergy in the sense of like, I could be on a 10 and like doing a lot of things, and her life might be going a different way, or vice versa, because I was very much pregnant doing this. So like, and we just picked up where we needed to. So there's not that feeling of, oh, you do it because you haven't been. No, it's like, what needs to be done gets done. And so making sure that that's also understood. Granted, we never had a conversation about it, but again, our personalities are just like that. And so I think that's also very important if you're doing this with someone else. If you're not, just make sure you can wear all these hats. Because sometimes things happen, especially if you got tenants, and emergencies happen and things happen. So making sure that you are ready for that mentally, physically, because physically you might have to do some physical work, you know? And so be prepared for all that. And that's what I would say. Just plan and prepare accordingly, not to the point where you're immobile and you don't do anything, but to make sure that you can deal with any outcome, or that you have and you can find a way to deal with outcomes in a way that's going to be beneficial to you. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I agree. So if I can add one thing, I would say that anyone who may think that this is something out of their reach, or if they have questions, they're not sure, any family or friends who may have questions about even starting, how do they start, or going through the process, family or friends, you have my contact, or T's. I would assume T is not always willing to share. That's one thing that I think that attracted me to her, and building a friendship. She's always sharing. I'm like, okay, very resourceful, not selfish. So I think you would also be willing to share advice, our experience, and or guidance throughout the process. So if you have any questions about the entire process, you can also private message or call us. We will share some more. Absolutely. And I hope more of us do take on that journey and get to the other side. So I would highly recommend, even though it was long, was not easy, I would definitely do it over, and would encourage you to do the same.
Yeah. And just to end this off with, it's one thing to try and it doesn't work, but I think the failure comes when you don't try at all. Mm-hmm. Honestly. Yeah. Oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Bye.
Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of the Oasis podcast. I hope you were able to find something that resonated with you on your journey. Don't forget to subscribe anywhere you listen to podcasts and YouTube. Rate us and leave us a review and comment on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and YouTube. Share your favorite episode and like us on Instagram and Facebook. If you have any questions, comments, want to be a guest, or any show ideas, contact us at ajaysoasis@gmail.com. That's AAYJAYSOASIS@gmail.com, or direct message us on Instagram and Facebook.